Dear students, I welcome you all for the lecture series on food technology. The topic for today's presentation will be on proteins. The objective of the course study material is to know about the important macromolecule proteins which are of prime importance to human health. They are the major component of all animal and plant tissues. Introduction. Proteins are the most abundant macromolecules in the living cells and constitute 50% or more of their dry weight. They are composed of carbon 50 to 55%, hydrogen 6 to 7%, nitrogen 15 to 19%, oxygen 19 to 24%, and sulfur 0 to 4%. Their molecular weight ranges between 10,000 to more than 10 lakhs. The term protein is derived from the Greek word proteo, meaning first, suggested by Mulder in the year 1840, who recognized that without it no life is possible. Proteins are needed for growth, maintenance and repair of the body tissue. They regulate key processes in the body. About 50% of the protein is present in muscle, 20% in bone, 10% in skin and rest is present in other parts of the body. Based on this background, the following aspects are to be studied under proteins. First one is their chemical composition, second is the physical chemical properties, third is classification of proteins, fourth digestion and absorption, fifth function, sixth dietary sources, seventh deficiency and excess, and finally conclusion. First is chemical composition. On acid hydrolysis, protein yields a group of simple organic molecules of low molecular weight called amino acids, which form the fundamental units of a protein structure. Out of 300 amino acids known, only 20 amino acids can be found in proteins. Unique sequence and length of each protein gives its conformation and make it suitable for its particular function. Hence, all proteins are polymers and are made up of individual amino acids which are joined together by an amide linkage called peptide bond. And the peptide bond is as shown on the screen. In the protein molecule, the amino acid residues are covalently linked to form very long unbranched chains united in a head to tail arrangement. The macromolecules called polypeptides may contain hundreds of amino acid units. Some proteins contain one polypeptide and others contain two or more. Each polypeptide chain has a definite molecular weight, chemical composition, sequential order of its amino acids and three-dimensional structures, and the figure is as shown on the screen. Structure of amino acids. Amino acids are the basic units for proteins and exist as isomers. Most of the naturally occurring amino acids are of L form. Typically, amino acid has three features which is as shown on the screen. It comprises of carbon skeleton, free amino group that is NH2, free carboxylic group that is COOH and a hydrogen atom which is attached to the central carbon. The amino group that is N of one amino acid is joined to the carboxylic group the C of another amino acid. Coming to the physicochemical properties of proteins. First one is amphoteric behavior. Proteins are ampholytes, that is they act as both acids and bases. As electrolytes, they migrate in an electric field. The direction of the migration is determined by the net charge of molecule and influenced by pH. For each protein, there is a pH value at which its net charge is neutral and will not move in an electric field. This pH is called the isoelectric point. Second is the electrophoresis. The movement of a charged particle in an electric field towards the oppositely charged electrode is called electrophoresis. Proteins migrate in an electric field except at the isoelectric point. Since proteins markedly differ in their isoelectric point, they differ in their electrophoretic mobility at any given pH value. Electrophoretic analysis is used to determine purity of individual proteins and quantitative analysis of complex mixtures. The next is solubility. Each homogeneous protein has a definite and characteristic solubility in a solution of known salt concentration and pH. The solubility of a protein is minimum at the isoelectric point and increases with acidity and alkalinity. Next is colloidal nature. Proteins have a large molecular weight and protein solutions are colloids and therefore do not pass through semi-permeable membranes. The next subtopic is on classification of proteins. Classification of proteins is based on conformation and composition. Proteins are divided into three major classes on the basis of their composition as simple, conjugated and derived proteins, and the table is as shown on the screen. Based on conformation, they are divided into fibrous and globular. Fibrous protein includes alpha keratin, beta keratin and collagen. The examples under globular proteins are myoglobin, hemoglobin and lysozyme. Based on composition, proteins are divided as simple, conjugated and derived proteins. The examples under simple are albumin and globulin. Under conjugated, nucleoproteins, lipoproteins and glycoproteins are the examples under conjugated proteins. Derived proteins includes peptone, small peptides and fibrin. Based on the nature, proteins are classified as acidic and basic. Example under acidic include blood proteins and histones under basic proteins. Simple proteins are those which on hydrolysis yield only amino acids and no other major organic or inorganic hydrolysis products. Conjugated proteins are those yielding not only amino acids but also other organic and inorganic compounds. The non-amino acid portion of a conjugated protein is called the prosthetic group. In the native state, each type of protein has a characteristic three-dimensional shape referred to as conformation. Depending on their conformation, protein can be placed in two major classes, fibrous and globular, that is as shown on the screen. Fibrous protein consists of polypeptide chains arranged in parallel along a single axis to long fibers on sheets. Globular proteins are tightly folded into compact spherical or globular shapes. Proteins can also be divided based on their nature as acidic and basic. Coming to the nutritional classification of proteins. Nutritionally, proteins can be divided as essential and non-essential amino acids. Out of 20 amino acids of protein, there are 9 amino acids that cannot be synthesized in the body. Therefore, must be supplied through dietary protein in sufficient amounts. The 9 amino acids is as shown on the screen. Non-essential amino acids. The human body can manufacture the remaining 11 amino acids and are therefore referred to as non-essential amino acids, and they are as shown on the screen. Coming to the next subtopic is on digestion and absorption of proteins. The first step in using dietary protein is breaking down its long polypeptide chains into amino acids. Digestion of proteins begins in the stomach and requires enzyme from a number of sources. In the stomach, the hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, denatures a protein, unfolding it and making the amino acid chain more accessible to the action of enzymes. Glands in the stomach lining produce the proenzyme pepsinogen, the inactive precursor of the enzyme pepsin. When pepsinogen comes in contact with HCl, it is converted to the active enzyme pepsin. Gastric juices must be acidic for these enzymes to be active. The optimum pH must be 2. Pepsin, an endopeptidase, is responsible for about 10 to 20% of protein digestion. Since food remains in the stomach for a limited time, pepsin hydrolyzes dietary proteins mainly into a mixture of polypeptide. If gastric HCl production is low and not adequate to maintain the pH of the stomach contents between 2 and 3, protein digestion in the stomach is negligible. In the small intestine, from the stomach, amino acid and polypeptide pass into the small intestine, where most of the protein digestion takes place. In the small intestine, activated proteases from the pancreas and intestinal lining cells break down large peptides into smaller peptides. The proteases involved in the digestion are trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptides, and these enzymes act at pH 7.4 to 8. Pancreatic enzymes completely digest proteins into individual amino acids. Enzymes on the surface of the small intestine split the remaining larger polypeptides into tripeptides and dipeptides and individual amino acids. Coming to the functions of proteins, structural and mechanical functions. Structures such as bone, skin and hair are made up of collagen, the most abundant protein in mammals. It gives elasticity to these structures. Hair and nails are made up of keratin and another important protein. Second is immune function. Proteins are responsible for fighting invasion and infection by foreign substances. Antibodies are blood proteins that attack and inactivate bacteria and viruses that cause infection. Third, as enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that catalyze or speed up chemical reactions without being destroyed in the process. Every cell contains thousands of enzymes, each with its own purpose. Cellular enzymes release energy from the nutrients to fuel thousands of body processes. Enzymes also trigger the reactions that build muscle and tissue. Next function is as hormones. Hormones are chemical messengers that are made in one part of the body but act on cells in other parts of the body. Protein hormones perform many important regulatory functions. Example, insulin is a protein hormone that plays a key role in regulating the amount of glucose in blood. It is released from the pancreas in response to rise in blood glucose levels and works to lower those levels. The next function is acid-base balance. Proteins helps in maintaining pH balance in the body fluids by serving as buffers. They pick up extra hydrogen ions when conditions are acidic and they donate hydrogen ions when conditions are alkaline. If proteins are not available to buffer acidic or alkaline substances, the blood can become too acidic or too alkaline, resulting in either acidosis or alkalosis. Both conditions can be serious and can lead to coma or death. The next function is transport functions. Many substances pass in and out of the cells through proteins that cross cell membranes and act as channels and pumps. Proteins also act as carriers, transporting many important substances in the bloodstream for delivery throughout the body. Example, they transport lipid components like triglycerides, cholesterol and phospholipids by complexing with them, forming lipoproteins. Serum albumin carries free fatty acids. Specific proteins act as carriers for fat-soluble vitamins. Retinol binding proteins carry retinol, that is vitamin A. Iron is stored in the liver and bone marrow as ferritin, which is a complex of iron with a protein. The next function is fluid balance. Fluids in the body are found inside cells, that is intracellular fluid, or outside cells, that is extracellular fluid. There are two types of extracellular fluids: fluid between cells called intracellular fluid or interstitial fluid, and fluid in the blood, that is intravascular fluid. Proteins in the blood helps to maintain appropriate fluid levels in the vascular systems. The next important function is source of energy and glucose. Although our body prefers to burn carbohydrate and fat for energy. If necessary, it can use protein for energy or to make glucose. Thus, carbohydrates and fats are protein sparing. They spare amino acids from being burned for energy and allow them to be used for protein synthesis. Normally, metabolism yields about 6 to 12% of the body's energy needs. The next important subtopic is dietary sources of proteins. Animal foods like meat, fish and egg are good sources of proteins. Plant foods include pulses, oilseeds and nuts. Milk is also a good quality protein. Cereals and millets are moderate sources of protein as they contain about 10% of protein. Soya bean is the richest source among plant-based proteins, which has 40% protein and is ideal source of proteins for vegetarians. Leafy vegetables, roots and tubers are generally poor sources of proteins as they contain less than 2% protein. Protein content of common foods is as shown on the screen. Among the animal sources, milk of cows gives 3 grams per 100 grams of protein, buffalo milk yields 4 grams, egg of hen gives 13 grams, fowl 26 grams, cheese 24 grams, liver goat 20 grams, prawn 19 grams, mutton 18 grams, fish that is katla 19 grams per 100 grams. Among the plant sources, rice gives 10, wheat 14, corn whole 9.2, groundnuts 25, peas dry 20, Bengal gram whole 17, green gram dal 24, soya bean 43 and wheat germ 9 grams per 100 grams of proteins. The next important subtopic is on protein deficiency. As proteins plays a vital role in many body processes, its deficiency results in great damage to numerous body systems. Protein deficiency occurs when energy or protein intake is inadequate. Sufficient energy intake spares dietary and body proteins as they can be used for protein synthesis. When the protein intake, either in terms of quantity or quality or both, is not sufficient during the growth period, the child suffers from the disease known as protein energy malnutrition, that is abbreviated as PEM. It is prevalent among children and contributes to 1/3 of all deaths worldwide. In more than 50% of deaths in children, malnutrition is the direct or indirect cause. PEM is a silent killer in many children. It is a condition resulting from long-term inadequate intakes of proteins and energy that can lead to wasting of body tissues and increase susceptibility to infection. Many factors contribute to PEM, including poverty, insufficient food intake, poor food quality, unsanitary living conditions and improper feeding of infants and young children. Although it can occur at all stages of life, PEM is most common during childhood when protein is needed to support rapid growth. It can also occur in elderly people, hospitalized patients with other conditions such as anorexia nervosa, AIDS, cancer or malabsorption syndromes. Symptoms of PEM can be mild or severe and exist in either acute or chronic forms. Types of PEM. Severe protein deficiency is called kwashiorkor, whereas severe calorie deficiency is called marasmus. And the difference between kwashiorkor and marasmus is as shown on the screen. Marasmus. The word marasmus is derived from Greek word marasmos, which means to waste away or withering. It develops more slowly than kwashiorkor and results from chronic PEM. Protein, energy and nutrient intakes are all grossly inadequate, depleting body fat reserves and severely wasting muscle tissue, including vital organs like the heart. Growth slows or stops and children are both short and very thin for their age. Metabolism slows and body temperature drops as the body tries to conserve energy. Marasmus occurs most often in infants and in children 6 to 18 months of age. It can also occur in adults who have cancer or are experiencing starvation. The signs and symptoms observed in marasmic child are as follows: severe growth retardation, loss of subcutaneous fat, severe muscle wasting, child appears very thin and short for its age, shriveled body, wrinkled skin, dehydration associated with vitamin deficiencies, irritability and apathy is common. Kwashiorkor. The term Kwashiorkor is a Ghanaian word that describes the evil spirit that infects the first child when the second child is born. In many cultures, babies are breastfed until the next baby comes along. When the new baby arrives, the first baby is weaned from nutritious breast milk to watery down version of the family's diet. In areas of poverty, this diet is often low in protein, or the consumed protein is not digested and absorbed easily. In this condition, the child is not able to adapt to the stress of inadequate diet, infection and separation from the mother due to the subsequent pregnancy. It occurs in children between 18 to 24 months of age. Its onset can be rapid and is often triggered by an infection or illness that increases the child's protein needs. The signs and symptoms observed in Kwashiorkor are as follows: edema and swelling of body tissue, particularly in feet and legs, bloated belly, stunted weight and height, increased susceptibility to infection, dry and flaky skin, dry, brittle and unnaturally blonde hair, changes in skin color, mental development is also affected, diarrhea. Coming to the excess dietary protein. In developed countries, an excess of protein and energy is more common than the deficiency. Diets rich in animal protein are often associated with various diseases like kidney problems, osteoporosis, heart disease and cancer. Normal intake of protein is 1 gram per kg body weight. It is recommended by Indian Council of Medical Research ICMR 2010 for the normal Asian population. Any excess protein can be harmful and encountered with various health issues. High protein intake can strain kidney function and is especially harmful for people with kidney disease or diabetes. To prevent dehydration, it is important to drink plenty of fluids to dilute the byproducts of protein breakdown for excretion. Second is osteoporosis. The link between high protein diets and osteoporosis is based on the studies showing that a high protein intake increases calcium excretion, which could then contribute to bone mineral losses. Third is obesity. Studies have shown a correlation between high protein intake and body fatness. High protein foods often are high in fat. A diet high in fat and protein may provide too much energy, contributing to obesity. Fourth is heart diseases. Research has linked high intake of foods rich in animal protein to high blood cholesterol levels and increased risk of heart disease. Foods high in animal protein are also high in saturated fat and cholesterol. Fifth one is cancer. Diets high in animal protein have been linked to pancreatic, colon, kidney, breast and prostate cancers. Mock meats, sausages and bacon has been associated with increased colon cancer risk. Coming the last conclusions of the topic, proteins are the macromolecules composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and sulfur. They are made up of amino acids linked together by peptide bonds. The amino acid sequence of a protein determines its shape and function. Out of 20 amino acids that are commonly present in proteins, 9 are called essential amino acids and have to be supplied through diet. Dietary protein is found in meats, dairy products, legumes, nuts and grains. In general, animal foods contain higher quality protein than plant foods. Protein needs are highest when growth is rapid, such as infancy, childhood and adolescence. Protein deficiency is most common in developing countries and often results in marasmus and kwashiorkor. Excess protein is also harmful and may affect risk for heart diseases and cancer. Thank you.